Hey, you guys, welcome back to Brownie's Judgment. I'm your host, Zuli, and today I wanted to discuss what my teens and early 20s taught me. So, I'm going to be going over 5 different aspects in no particular order or no particular time period. I just felt like these are some lessons that I learned throughout the years, and I think as they came up, I just wrote them down. So, I tried to divide them based off of, mental, emotional, friendship, relationship, physical aspect, faith, or spiritual, so that way I could get a little bit of everything. But this episode was also inspired by, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's Nurse John. And he's a very popular nurse that has his own podcast. Definitely check that out. And I got the pleasure to see him in person, and he made an episode showcasing what his 20s taught him and things that he's gonna bring into his 30s himself. So I think that this is a great standpoint for me because I think the teens and the early 20s are especially a very wonky area in our lives. And I think my listeners, I'm starting to notice, are tend to be younger. So I think this would be a great episode to just talk about what I learned throughout those years so that way hopefully it can give a little bit of insight, and if you're experiencing these things that you're not alone. So number 1, so this goes into the mental slash emotional aspect. It's rare to even find a few people who stick with you through it all, including when you need space. Even now that I'm in my mid 20s, I notice that from time to time, I do need my own space. And it's healthy, it's good to have these boundaries of, hey, I need a stop. I need for this person to respect the fact that I'm not having the best day, and not necessarily trying to isolate, because there's a very fine line of that. If you do it too much, you can isolate. But in regards of you just had a really draining day, and you need the space, and this person keeps spamming and spamming and spamming, other than if it's an emergency, that shouldn't be the case. It's really hard to find people who can find that medium with you, in which you understand their cues and they understand yours. But that takes time and years, of course, of dedicating to this relationship, friends, family, whatever. And I think that it's something that I'm starting to even learn. I just didn't really understand the importance of people respecting my space until this past year. And I think that we can feel guilty as especially people who have the people pleasing personality, of just not wanting to offend anybody and just wanting to keep the peace. But the reality is that can easily quite drain individuals. And I think that it's important that we give ourselves that space, and someone that sticks with you throughout it, and that sense of loyalty, and the sense of they're not gonna just be like a yes man or whatever, or a woman. um but I think that it's important that this person is able to call us out, when we're in the wrong, but also stick with us whenever no one else believes us. Because that can happen. I'm sure every single one of us, whether it was something big or something small, in which an individual or yourself was stuck in a situation that no one believed what they were saying. And it's just like, wow, like I already said that, yada yada, that this happened. But no one's really wanting to on the outside, wanting to see their perspective. And I think it's important that to not feel so alone in those aspects, and that genuinely does come from people that stick with you throughout it all. And I can say in my own life, especially my teens, especially like in high school, I had a time period in which um certain rumors were being spread around me about me, and they just weren't true. And I think that ultimately we can kind of alter our own truth. But the thing is, people can alter our truth even though they don't know what's going on. And I think that especially whenever we're in a state of isolation, that it's easy to fall into that trap of, oh my goodness, like I don't deserve to have someone stick by my side, or like why are they still here? But like ultimately those people are the ones that help us get through those time periods. But it's also important for us to be that person for someone else. But the reality is that we can't do that for everyone, and everyone can't do that for us, because we're going to click with some people better than others. But the important thing is to remember is to really take the time to get to know the person and understand and see, and don't try to force it. But only you will truly know if this person is someone that you can trust and they can trust you back. And that takes time. And unfortunately, you know, as a young, naive individual, even as you get older, you can make the mistake of trusting someone that you weren't supposed to. But that's how you live, and that's how you learn, and you understand the cues of someone that has malintentions, and you can feel it in your nervous system. And I think it's important that we listen to those body cues as much as we can. I feel like our body knows better than we do, you know what I mean, than our mind does. All right, number 2. This is an interesting one. This might be a little bit of controversial, I guess, but I think it, just because it happened to me, is why I want to share it. You can take it or leave it, of course, but it's gonna have different interpretations for everyone, depending on the person that you were in this situation. So, I guess this goes to say that if something doesn't work out, right, but it comes back, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was truly meant to be. But all right, so sorry, I was in the middle of a phone conversation. But either way, like I said, sometimes it's meant to be, sometimes it's not. But like I said, in my experience, I was the one that decided to walk away from a previous friendship that I had. And luckily, me and this person, we reunited, and genuinely, I am so grateful for, to this day, that we have the friendship that we do. And slowly but surely, throughout the years, since seeing each other almost, about, I want to say 7 years ago, um, we have gotten our friendship better even than it was before, when we had were first talking. And I'm not saying this to like excuse, my behavior or a toxic behavior of anyone. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's important to realize that, we make mistakes and other people make mistakes too. Obviously, the severity of a mistake depends on the circumstance and how the person views it and stuff like that. I'm not gonna go here and say, that someone that was being hurt in a very, very harmful way should forgive someone that comes back because, oh, like they've changed and blah blah blah. That's up to interpretation. Because this piece of advice has very different layers and contexts, and I'm not gonna sit here and act like I didn't do anything wrong, or this person or whoever, you know what I mean? Like, I think I just feel like this was a very big thing for me that I experienced personally. And so I believe that there's a lot of ambiguity or mystery to this piece of advice, because ultimately everyone sees that circumstance differently. Even myself, though, I've been on the other end, in which I forgave people and gave them a second chance, and I shouldn't have, you know? And it's not to say that, oh, like, I deserved a second chance, but this person didn't deserve a second chance. It's based off of, like I said, the circumstances. And then sometimes, maybe one day I'll go into it, just not yet. It's not that episode. But either way, I think that it's important to just keep this advice in a pin, just pin it for now and base it off of your situation. Should this person have um access back into your life or not? It just depends on how the circumstance is. All right. number 3, this kind of piggybacks on number 2. So number 3, this goes off of relationships. So the second one, I was rolling it more towards a friendship, also relationship too, but this is definitely more geared towards relationships in our life in general, whether it be romantic, friendships, family, whatever. But especially romantic relationships won't guarantee happiness or fix you. If anything, it will showcase your flaws. This one is humongous for me because, wow, that is huge. Because I think it's easy to feel like, oh my goodness, like this person is so exciting. Like I said, it doesn't have to be romantic, but still, it's like, oh my goodness, like this person, like they fill up my time and they make me excited and they make me want to be a better person and I want to know everything about them. And it's just like a spiral of, not that those boundaries crossing, and that, that goes back to number 1, even talking about people respecting your space. But I think when it comes to the point where there's an obsession over a person in which their actions, their words, their thoughts, like anything that they can say or do, that it affects you so much emotionally that it just throws you off, that's a very bad sign. And it just goes to show that our relationships, we have to be very, very careful about who we give access to our heart to as well. That's another thing, to guard your heart. But the whole flaw thing, at first there's those rose color tinted glasses in which we think that everything's fabulous and we're good and everything's fine and everything about this person is perfect. And then a little bit more time passes by and we truly see them for who they are and they see us for who we truly are. And then it's like, wait, whoa. This is not the person that I thought or that I believed they were, or vice versa. They can think and say the same thing about you. And this, I guess this is another little tiny piece of advice attached to this one, in which I think and I truly believe that that's why it's even more important to really take our time when it comes to bringing someone into our lives, especially romantic, of course. But I think we can get ourselves into really big trouble. We romanticize a situation just a little bit too much. Because, like I said, sometimes people are not truly the way they show themselves up to be, and then vice versa. Sometimes you can portray yourself a little bit too nice or a little bit too open or a little bit too this without realizing it, because you want this person to approve. And not everyone struggles with this, and the people that don't, you're very lucky, but you're the minority of the population, because especially in our younger generations, we can romanticize and we feel that this person's gonna fix us and everything's gonna be awesome, and oh my goodness, like, because I'm single, like I'm gonna be miserable and blah blah blah. Like, that is such a huge misconception. And I remember always being so annoyed, irritated, absolutely irritated, when people used to say, oh, you have to be happy with yourself and you have to have fulfillment and you can't rely on someone else to make you happy and yada yada yada. And it used to irk me, because I'm like, you're saying that because you're in a relationship. And then that's whenever I was like, when it happened to me and I had to learn it for myself, I was like, whoa, they're right. And I don't like to admit that. I'm being honest. I don't, even me discussing this right now, it's hard, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around this piece of advice, because it's true, but until your heart and your mind are connected to it, it's almost impossible to truly understand. Because I know it logically. I'm like, yeah, like it makes sense, like logically. I have to make sure that I'm not relying on this person for my happiness. But emotionally, when you're caught up in that situation, those endorphins, that dopamine is hitting, and the reinforcement of, oh my goodness, this person likes me, they like me for who I am, whatever, or for a version that you're not. It's easy to blur those lines, right? But be very careful. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, you have to be totally fine and everything has to be, perfect in your life. You have to go through everything. And like sometimes, genuinely speaking, uh maybe this person helps you see things differently. You know what I mean? Not necessarily fix you, but like their perspective is meant to come into your life for you to do that change within yourself. You know what I mean? And a lot of couples, relationships, whatever, and they get married, and there's still some things that they have to work through together, even as a couple, even if it's two emotionally healthy people coming together, because ultimately speaking, um, everyone has their flaws, you know what I mean? And even though we really love someone, you can get on each other's nerves really, 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 really quick whenever you're under the same roof. Hence why, we bicker with our siblings so much, or with our parents, or whoever we're living with, because we're always there, and there's more opportunity for that. So I think it's important that to realize that the more time you spend together in a relationship, a friendship, whatever, and then you're starting to notice, like, oh my goodness, like, like when they do blah blah blah, like it annoys me, or like, I never noticed this before. How did I never notice this before? Because it's ultimately, possibly one or two things. Either you rushed it, or perhaps you and this person are still getting to know each other, and that's totally fine. And I think that whenever we take our time with getting to know people, that's ultimately going to be the key to success in that aspect of making sure that we're not relying on this person for our own happiness, or that, if it doesn't work out, that it doesn't completely crumble us. That's why the whole thing with situationships, it's so, oh my gosh, it's a mess. But I understand it. I've been there. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying that you're doing it wrong. Sometimes you just have to live, and you have to learn, and you have to understand what you do when you don't like. That's part of the process, and I agree with that. But we also can be smarter in regards. You can be smarter than I was when I was younger, and avoiding that unnecessary hurt. Yeah, sorry if I got a little too loud. I was very passionate about that one. All right, number 4. Ooh, another one I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about all of these, but especially these last 3. Oh my gosh, having a perfect body. This goes into physical. Having a perfect body does not fix your problems. Oh my goodness. This needs to be said and repeated and plastered on a billboard and stampede onto our hearts and our minds, because wow, this is one that I've had to learn and learn and learn, and still am learning. Okay, we don't have to talk about the BBLs. We don't have to talk about the waist trainers. We don't have to talk about the fad diets. We don't have to talk about any of that and it not click in your head. You just know, right? It goes for men and women, right? I don't even have to talk about the ideal body type without it going into your head and you realizing how you don't fit that. I don't even need to describe that. And it goes for men too. I don't even need to talk about the ideal, quote unquote, body standard for men, for them to emotionally, physically, mentally connect themselves to that. And it's sad, but it's true. And let me explain why having a perfect body is going to solve all your problems. And this isn't my experience. And as someone trying to get back into the gym and stuff like that again, and having had been a toxic environment for me, and also with trying to eat healthy and stuff like that, and that having its boundaries broken from time to time, I used the gym before. Now I took like a year break from it, and that was really hard, and I'm so glad that I did, right, to do that mental work. But I use the gym as a coping mechanism of when I was mentally and emotionally tired or hurt or whatever. And I think that I taking the time to go through that inner work myself instead of doing it the opposite of thinking that the gym was going to fix the inner work within me um, was a huge game changer because even at my lightest weight at all in my life, that is when I was the most miserable. I mean, even you could see it on my face, my acne was flaring up. Not the worst, but it still was flaring up. And I wasn't, I didn't feel joy in my life. I didn't feel peace. I didn't feel like, even that if I would look in the mirror and I logically knew, wow, like this is the most fit I have ever been. But on the inside, I was, I was suffering. You know what I mean? And that's, when I was hitting it at the gym the most and like, when I was eating the healthiest and I was, I don't want to say restricting myself, but like I had more control of holding myself back on certain things that I shouldn't be eating or, having them in moderation, kind of thing. And I had, looking back at those photos, I had the body type that I always wanted and I achieved it. But why did I not have that fulfillment within me? You know what I mean? And that's something that, and when I was at my heaviest, I felt the most fulfillment. And it's so weird. Like that, I'm not trying to say that you have to be heavy to be fulfilled. No, not at all. Because, I was very unhealthy at that time. And I'm kind of like in the middle of those two right now. So I guess this is like the perfect spot to kind of talk about this because I've been at my lowest and I've been at my heaviest at this point in my life, and I'm slowly trying to not get back to my lowest but to get to a healthier version of myself. Not necessarily to the lowest I've been, but like healthy for me, and I think that that's something that's not talked about enough, that going to the gym trying to achieve that perfect body or trying to eat the correct food and whatnot to achieve that perfect body is not going to bring happiness. And I can attest to that to myself because I thought that was going to fix me. I thought that was going to make me more loved or make me feel happier, and it really didn't. And I think this is a reminder that I need to tell myself too, trying to get back into this whole routine all over again. I can honest to God say that this time around, I have to literally restrict myself. I have to push back on if I'm feeling, mentally, emotionally, some type of way. Like even now, right now, because I know that I have the gym membership, I'm like, oh, I gotta go to the gym. I gotta hit the gym. I gotta hit the gym. Instead of releasing those emotions, writing it down, whatever I need to do. And that's something I'm actively going through right now. And it's about, I genuinely feel, finding that inner peace within oneself and being happy with the person that someone is on the inside and allowing God to not fix, I'm sorry, that's a really bad word to use, but to heal those parts of ourselves that are wounded and that need that special care and attention from Him. And that goes to say that genuinely me dedicating more time to God and building my relationship with Him is truly the only thing that has brought me that fulfillment. He's the one that helped me understand that no, it's not in the way your body looks. It's not in the way that you please other people or your accomplishments or anything like that. That's another one, accomplishments. But I already talked about something like that before in my career and college, whatever episode. But I think that it's important to realize that we as individuals are not machines. We really aren't. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to push this under the rug or, be insensitive, because I know this is a very, very personal, touchy issue. But it even expands to, your clothing. I went through a point in my life where I felt like you had to reveal more. Not necessarily like it wasn't overtly too much, compared to how it is now with like the bubble skirts and stuff. Oh my goodness, I couldn't. I'm sorry, but there was a point in my life where I felt like, I needed to wear like the top crop, the crop tops, and like the really high waisted, tight skinny jeans. You know what I mean? Like that was like um a point in my life where I felt like I needed to extenuate my figure to be more desirable, or but now I'm becoming more comfortable in like looser clothing, and being more comfortable with, hey, like this doesn't match, but it's fine because I'm great and I feel comfortable, and who cares, like it takes time to get to that place of where um fashion and body image isn't overtaking one's life, and it allowing to take over other aspects of our lives that we could truly enjoy, whether it be our relationship with God and our faith, and finding that community, or connecting with our friends and our families, and trying to avoid those gatherings because we don't want to eat that food because it'll like quote unquote like untrack our progress, or whatever, or it's going to make me look this kind of way or gain this way. You know what I mean? Like we have to be very careful about not letting our body image um take over our sense of joy, and thinking that it's going to fix everything that's inside of us, because honestly that's just a level of a very very surface level of the reflection of who we truly are. And I remember there's this thing that I've learned about, like, there's levels of us. There's like the surface level of, who people see us, like how we physically look like, and like, like our first impression, like that we see of other people, and like acquaintances, like close friends, and like really like best friends or relationships, whatever. There's like different layers that you get to meet of someone, because we all portray ourselves in different ways. And sorry, I'm kind of going off the rails a little bit. Well, I'm saying that just please take the time to truly understand what's going on intrinsically. What were those um, emotional wounds? What were those things said to you? What are those beliefs that you believed about yourself, or something that you saw that made you feel insignificant or inadequate, body wise, before allowing it to take over all the aspects of your life? Because I've been there. It's hard, and I understand, I empathize with you, because in this day and age we just have to fight against it. And I know it's easier said than done, but realizing that you're there is a really big step. And the second step is truly being willing to stand next to God, face to face with what these things are, to combat it together and conquer that, so that way you can get to the healthiest version of yourself. Not the fittest, not the most attractive, but the healthiest version of yourself. Not even just physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all those aspects. Because once you get to that place and you fight for it, you continually fight for it, you can understand more about yourself, of the person that you used to be. And it's totally worth it. It's hard. It's taken me years, and I'm still going through it and trying to understand it, but it's worth it. Trust me, it's worth the fight, especially if it's something that you struggle with. And not everyone struggles with this either, right? But I'm just saying, for the people that do. All right, number 5, not last and not least. Well, it is last but not least. I'm sorry. God is the one that will ultimately guide your path. My goodness, this is a big one for me too. I'm trying not to go off the rails on this episode already, because I'm already off my more than the time that I usually go for. But I think that this needs to be taken with consideration as well. As I talked about, in my college and career episode and all of that, I said that I was jumping from career to career, that I didn't know what I wanted, and I felt so much anxiety, and I felt so depressed, and I felt so hopeless that I couldn't figure out what it is. Like, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Like, it was just all about me, 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 me. Like status quo, like thinking about stuff like that. Um, and I think when I was finally able to pause and give that to God and release it to Him and say, wow, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. I'm scared. I'm nervous, all of that, and giving it to Him, that is truly what set me free from all of this anxiousness that I felt within myself, and depression, all of that. And I truly do feel like I'm in a better place because I know that I don't have to figure it out all on my own, and I'm not alone, because that is a very big difference. That when you feel like you're alone, you have to figure it out and it's all up to you, and if you mess it up, then everything's gonna go wrong, versus you surrendering, oh my goodness, it to a higher power, and realizing that, you know, Jesus is going to be the one ultimately that already knows the big picture, that knows way more than you do. And it goes even it goes for everything. It goes for, you know, your mental health, your emotional burdens, your relationships, your friendships, everything in your life. Everything is already known to him. And I think that we can be so stubborn and prideful, because I know this was me. I know this is me at times. Or we're like, no, God, I got it. I'm going to do this, and that. I'm going to be good. And then we do it, and we're like, oh, I did something wrong. Why is it turning out this way? Because we weren't supposed to be there in the first place. And I think being vulnerable enough and honest enough with ourselves to say that we made a mistake, and realizing that we can't do it on our own strength, is the first step into getting to where we're actually supposed to be, not where we want to be, what we're actually supposed to be. And he knows the true desires of our heart, right? There's something bigger that he has in mind for us that we don't even know, that we couldn't even think or dream of ourselves. Why do you think there's people that say that I could have never imagined myself here, but God put it in me, and he gave me the purpose of my life, and I went there. And that's where they, you know, it's not even about success. It's not about grand success. You know, all of us are going to be successful in different ways, for as long as we allow him to guide our path. Because if we don't, we're going to be missing the whole picture. We're going to be missing the full potential of ourselves. It's not going to say, I'm not here saying that, oh, like, you have to follow God because without him, you're going to be sad and miserable, blah, blah, blah. No, like, follow him because it's not even because it's in your best interest, but because he's going to transform you, you know, physically, emotionally, all of that. He's going to transform you into a version of yourself that you never thought you could be, that you always wanted to be, because he knows the person, the man or the woman that you were always meant to be. He knows that. We don't. There's so much that we don't know, and honestly, it would probably terrify us if we knew everything that he did about us, even just us as individuals. He knows about everyone's, right? um I don't want to keep going off on a tangent here, but I appreciate you so much for sticking here with me and listening to all of my episodes. Feel free to, you know, talk about how this relates to you, or something, or one of these aspects that you struggle with, or that you're still trying to learn, or, you know, anything. Just you know, I have my email in the description. Feel free to reach out that way, or, you know, leave a comment, whatever you want to do. I would love to talk about this more. I'm very passionate about this subject because, like I said, I know the teens and the early 20s are hard. Now that I'm going in my late, now that I'm in my late, I'm sorry, my middle 20s, sorry, my mid 20s. I can see things so much more clearly now, but it took a long time for me to get there. As always, God bless, and see you in the next one.